The night was cold, and the streets of the alien city were silent. A woman walked alone, her steps slow, her eyes full of tears. She was not just any woman. She was the wife of a respected alien man, but tonight she was no longer his. Her husband had cast her aside, his words sharp like knives, his actions cruel like fire. He told her she was dirty, unworthy, and ashamed to his name. In front of others, he pushed her away, and when she begged, he only laughed. The door of their home closed behind her, and the locks clicked. Her life as a wife, as a partner, was over in one cruel moment. She had no place to go, no family to welcome her back. In their world, a cast-aside wife was worse than nothing. People stared at her from windows, whispering to each other. Children pointed, and mothers pulled them away, as if she carried a disease. The woman's name was Lyra. She wrapped her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders, but it did not stop the cold. Her heart felt heavier than the night sky above. She walked past glowing alien lamps, their light flickering on broken stone roads. Every step echoed with the sound of her loneliness. She thought about the years she had given to her husband, the loyalty, the care, the sacrifices. And now, she was thrown out like waste. Her chest ached with anger, but also with shame. She whispered to herself, "I will never trust again." The city around her felt like a cage. Tall alien buildings leaned over her like shadows. The air smelled of smoke, and the silence carried hidden dangers. Some men stared at her from dark corners, their eyes full of hunger. She quickened her steps, but her legs were weak. Her stomach growled with hunger, and her feet hurt from walking without rest. She reached an old bridge where water flowed black beneath. There she stopped, leaning on the cold metal rail. She wondered if life was even worth living now. She wondered if anyone, anywhere, would care if she disappeared tonight. Just then, a strange light caught her eyes. It was not the dull blue of alien lamps, nor the sharp red of warning signs. It was warm, golden, and steady. It came from a small house at the edge of the street, near the outer walls of the city. Lyra frowned, for such light was rare in this place. It reminded her of stories of humans. The humans were strangers on this world. Some said they were weak, others said they were dangerous, but they were always different. Lyra's husband used to spit when he spoke of them. Dirty creatures, he called them, not fit to share the same air. Yet, tonight, as she saw that golden light, she felt a pull in her heart. Her steps carried her closer, though fear battled inside her chest. She could hear laughter from inside, soft and warm. She stopped in front of the small house, her breath shaking. The door was wooden, unlike the metal ones of her people. She raised her hand, but stopped midway. Should she knock, or should she turn away? Her mind screamed at her to leave, to hide, to stay invisible. But her body was too tired, her soul too broken. She knocked, softly at first, then louder. The sound echoed in the cold street. Her heart pounded, waiting for whatever fate would answer. The door opened. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, his face lit by the warm light behind him. He was not alien, not like her. He was human. His eyes looked at her with surprise, then with something else, concern. His voice was calm, yet strong. "Are you lost?" Lyra stepped back, fear rising in her chest. Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but words failed her. The man saw her shiver, saw the tears on her cheeks. He opened the door wider, the light spilling into the dark street. "Come inside," he said. "You look cold." For a moment, Lyra froze. She remembered her husband's cruel face, his sharp words. She remembered the laughter of neighbors as they watched her thrown out. Trust was dangerous, she told herself. But her body betrayed her, her legs moved forward. And before she knew it, she was stepping into the warmth of a human's home. The night outside remained dark, but inside, a new story was beginning. A story she never expected. A story that would change her life forever. Lyra stood inside the doorway, the warmth of the human's home wrapping around her like a blanket. She had not felt such comfort in years. The air smelled of cooked food and wood smoke, so different from the metallic scent of her alien city. Her hands shook, and she looked down, unsure if she had made a mistake. The human watched her carefully, but not with judgment. His eyes were steady, filled with something she could not name. He stepped back, giving her space. "You don't have to stand there," he said softly. "You're safe inside." "Safe." The The word echoed in her mind. She wanted to believe it, but safety was something she had forgotten long ago. Her husband's house had been filled with chains of duty, not safety. Her world outside was filled with whispers and cruel eyes. Could she really trust this stranger? She stayed silent, her body tense. The man noticed her fear, so he moved slowly, his hands open, showing no threat. He pointed toward a chair near the small fire burning in the corner. "You can sit if you want." Lyra hesitated, then moved, her steps cautious. The chair was soft, covered in fabric, and the fire's glow touched her face. She let out a breath she did not know she was holding. The warmth reached deep inside her frozen heart. The man walked to a table, lifted a pot, and poured something into a cup. Steam rose, carrying the scent of herbs. He placed it in front of her. "Drink," he said, "it will help." Her fingers wrapped around the cup, the heat burning her cold skin. She sipped, and the taste was strange but soothing. Her stomach growled, and her cheeks flushed in shame. The man gave a small smile, as if he understood. "There's food too," he said, placing bread and meat on the table. "Eat, you need it." Lyra stared at the food, her pride fighting against her hunger. In her world, to accept kindness from a stranger was weakness. But hunger won, and she began to eat, slowly at first, then faster. Tears filled her eyes as she realized how long it had been since someone cared whether she lived or not. The man sat across from her, watching silently. He did not push her with questions. He did not stare with disgust. He simply let her be. This, more than anything, confused her. Why would a human care for her? Finally, he spoke, his voice calm. "My name is Daniel," he said. "What is yours?" She froze, bread in her hand. Her name had been called with anger and scorn so many times, she almost hated to speak it. "Still," she whispered, "Lyra." Daniel nodded, as if her name was the most natural thing in the world. He did not laugh, he did not mock. Instead, he repeated it gently, "Lyra," as if sealing it with respect. The sound made her chest tighten. Silence hung between them, but it was not heavy. It was the silence of two worlds meeting. Outside, the alien city growled with cold winds and restless shadows. Inside, time seemed to slow, but Lyra's mind was not quiet. She thought of her husband, of the humiliation, of the way he pushed her into the streets. She thought of his allies, the men who might already be searching for her. If they found her here, what would happen to this human? Would he be punished for helping her? She pushed the food away and stood, her hands trembling. "I should go," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "I should not be here." Daniel rose too, shaking his head. "You don't have to leave," he said firmly. "You are safe here." The word again. Safe. Her heart wanted to believe, but her fear screamed louder. She stepped toward the door, but Daniel moved faster, blocking it. Not with force, but with his presence. "Out there, it's dangerous," he said. "You'll freeze, or worse." She met his eyes, her breath caught. No one had ever stood in front of her like this. Not to own her, not to shame her, but to protect her. She did not know what to do. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Why? Why are you helping me?" Daniel looked at her with steady eyes. "Because no one deserves to be left out in the cold," he said simply. "Not even on a world like this." Her chest tightened, and for the first time since her husband's betrayal, Lyra felt something stir inside her. It was not trust yet, not love, but a fragile seed of hope. And though she wanted to fight it, she could not. She lowered her eyes, her voice trembling. "Then, I will stay." Daniel stepped aside, letting her breathe again. He did not smile with victory, he only nodded. "Good," he said. "You're safe here." Outside, the night grew darker. Shadows moved in the streets, whispers carried on the wind. Lyra did not know it yet, but her past was already reaching for her. And soon, both she and Daniel would face dangers neither of them expected. The fire crackled softly, filling the small home with warmth. Lyra sat in silence, her body tense even as the heat touched her skin. Daniel had gone about the room, moving with calm gestures, as if her presence was not a burden. She was not used to this, not used to being treated as if she mattered. Her husband's voice echoed in her memory, sharp and cruel. "You are nothing," he had said, "less than nothing." But here, in this strange human's house, those words began to feel weaker. Still, fear clung to her, whispering that this was only temporary. Daniel placed a blanket in her hands, soft and warm. "You should rest," he said. "You look like you haven't slept in days." Lyra stared at the blanket, unsure if she deserved it. Rest was a luxury, and safety was an illusion. Yet her body ached, every muscle crying for relief. Daniel pointed toward a small room at the side. "There's a bed there," he told her. "It's not much, but it's yours tonight." The word struck her, yours. No one had given her anything in years, not even a kind word. She hesitated, looking at him with suspicion. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He met her gaze without flinching. "Because you need it," he replied simply. There was no hidden motive in his tone, only quiet honesty. Lyra's heart twisted with confusion. Kindness without cost was something she had never known. Slowly, she walked toward the small room. The door creaked as she pushed it open, revealing a simple bed covered with thick blankets. The air smelled faintly of wood and soap, clean and calm. Her throat tightened as she touched the bed with trembling fingers. It was soft, softer than the stone floor she had been thrown onto earlier that night. She turned back, half expecting Daniel to follow, but he remained outside. He gave her space. "You can sleep," he said. "I'll keep the fire going." The gentleness in his words felt unreal. Lyra stepped inside, closed the door halfway, and sat on the bed. For a long moment, she could not move. Her mind fought with her body. One part screamed that she was a fool, that trusting a human was dangerous. Another part whispered that maybe, just maybe, she had found something her own people denied her. Safety. Her eyes grew heavy, but sleep did not come easily. She curled beneath the blanket, clutching it tightly as if it might disappear. Her ears caught every sound. The fire outside, the creak of wood, the faint wind pressing against the walls. And then, another sound, faint but sharp. Footsteps outside the house. Her breath caught. She sat up, heart racing. The steps were slow, cautious, moving along the street. Her mind instantly thought of her husband's allies, men who would drag her back to him. Fear froze her body. The sound passed, fading into the distance. She forced herself to breathe, but the fear did not leave her. She whispered into the darkness, "He will find me." Her voice cracked, heavy with despair. Outside, Daniel stirred the fire, unaware of her whispered fears. He hummed quietly, as if the world beyond his walls could not touch them. The sound soothed her, even as tears slid down her cheeks. For the first time in years, someone's presence made her feel less alone. Minutes stretched into hours. Her body finally surrendered to exhaustion. Her eyes closed, and her breathing slowed. The bed cradled her, the warmth wrapped her, and sleep claimed her at last. But her dreams were not kind. She saw her husband's face, twisted with anger. She heard his voice shouting, "You are mine." She saw his hands reaching for her, pulling her back into the cold streets. She cried out in her sleep, twisting beneath the blanket. The door creaked open slightly, and Daniel's voice came softly. "Lyra." She woke with a gasp, her chest rising and falling quickly. Daniel stood in the doorway, his face calm, his eyes full of concern. "You're safe," he said again, his voice steady. "It's only a dream." Lyra pressed her hands to her face, ashamed of her weakness. But Daniel did not laugh, he did not mock. He only waited, patient and quiet. "Go back to sleep," he told her. "No one will hurt you here." She wanted to believe him, but trust was heavy. Still, his words held something powerful, something stronger than her fear. Hope. She lay back down, her body trembling but her heart calmer. Daniel closed the door gently, leaving her in peace once more. As sleep returned, a thought lingered in her mind. She had been thrown away by her own kind, cast aside like nothing. But tonight, in the warmth of a human's bed, she felt a spark of something she thought she had lost forever, a reason to keep living. Morning light slipped through the cracks of the small wooden house. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, her body stiff but rested. For the first time in what felt like years, she had slept in a bed. The warmth of the blanket still clung to her, and the air smelled of bread baking. She sat up quickly, fear striking her again. What if the human had changed his mind? What if kindness was only a mask, like her husband's sweet words in the beginning? Her chest tightened, and she held the blanket close. But then she heard Daniel's voice outside the room, steady and calm. "You can come out when you're ready," he said, not pushing, not demanding. Lyra stood, her bare feet touching the wooden floor. She opened the door slowly and stepped into the main room. Daniel was there, placing food on the table. He looked up and gave a small nod, as if her presence was normal, not strange. "Sit," he said. "You need to eat." Lyra sat carefully, her eyes lowered. The bread was warm, and the scent of spiced tea filled the room. Her stomach growled, but she hesitated. Her people had always taught her that eating in front of others showed weakness. But Daniel broke a piece of bread and pushed it toward her. "Food is for sharing," he said simply. The words felt strange, but soft. Slowly, she took it, her fingers brushing his for a brief second. Her heart jumped, though she quickly pulled away. They ate in silence, but her mind was far from quiet. Every bite carried the weight of her past. Her husband's voice returned, cruel and sharp. "You owe me everything," he used to say. "Without me, you are nothing." She remembered the nights he left her hungry, the days he humiliated her in public, the years she had wasted trying to please a man who saw her only as property. Her hands trembled as she set the cup down. Daniel noticed, his eyes narrowing with concern. "What happened to you?" he asked softly. The question struck her. No one had ever cared to know her story. No one had ever asked. For a long moment, she stayed silent, her lips pressed tight. But then the words spilled out, broken and painful. She told him about her husband, about the betrayal, about the night she was thrown into the streets, about the whispers and stares of her people. Her voice cracked as she confessed how worthless she had felt. She spoke of the shame, the hunger, the fear. And finally, she whispered, "I thought of ending it, on the bridge, before I saw your light." Her eyes filled with tears, and she turned away. Shame burned in her chest, expecting him to mock her weakness. But Daniel's voice came, firm yet gentle. "You are not worthless," he said. "What he did to you was cruelty, not truth." The words hit her like fire, burning through the darkness in her mind. She shook her head, unable to believe. But Daniel leaned closer, his gaze steady. "You survived," he said. "That means you are stronger than he ever was." Her throat tightened, her breath unsteady. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Her husband had broken her spirit. Her people had turned their backs. And here was a human, a stranger, who gave her value with simple words. Lyra wiped her tears, but the shadows of fear did not leave her. She lowered her voice. "He will come for me." Daniel frowned, his jaw tightening. "Your husband?" She nodded, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "He has power and allies. They will not let me go easily. If they find me here, they will hurt you too." Daniel leaned back, silent for a moment. Then he shook his head, his voice steady. "Let them come," he said. "I won't let anyone take you back." His words carried a strength she had never known. But in her heart, doubt still lingered. That night, as darkness returned to the city, Lyra sat by the fire. She watched the flames dance, her thoughts heavy. She wanted to believe in Daniel's promise, but the shadows outside whispered otherwise. At one point, she heard footsteps again, faint and distant. Her breath caught, and she moved closer to the fire, as if the light could protect her. Daniel noticed her fear, but said nothing. He simply placed another log on the fire, keeping it burning strong. And though the night pressed against the walls, inside she felt a small piece of safety remain. Yet deep inside, she knew the past was not done with her. It was only a matter of time before it came knocking. And when it did, she would have to choose, run again, or face it with the human who had given her hope. Days passed inside the little wooden house. For Lyra, each sunrise felt unreal. She had been cast aside, abandoned, told she was nothing. Yet here she was, waking each morning to warmth and safety. Daniel did not treat her like a burden, nor like property. He treated her as if she was simply a person. At first, she kept her distance. Her words were short, her eyes always lowered. But Daniel's patience never faded. He gave her space when she needed it, and kindness when she least expected it. Slowly, the walls she had built around her heart began to crack. One morning, Daniel showed her how humans prepared food. He handed her a knife and vegetables, smiling. "Cut them like this," he said, moving slowly. Lyra watched carefully, her hands clumsy but willing. When she sliced too thick, she frowned, but Daniel only chuckled softly. "It doesn't have to be perfect," he said. "It just has to be real." His words struck her more than she wanted to admit. In her world, Everything had to be flawless. Her dress, her manners, her silence. But here, in his kitchen, imperfection was allowed. She laughed quietly, a sound she had not made in years. The sound startled her, but Daniel's smile widened. "You should laugh more," he said gently. "It suits you." At night, they shared stories. Daniel spoke of Earth, of oceans so wide the eye could not see their end, of forests filled with green leaves, of skies painted with countless stars. Lyra listened in awe, her mind painting pictures of a world so different from her own. She told him small pieces of her life, though her voice shook. Stories of her childhood, of songs her mother once sang. Daniel listened without judgment, his silence respectful. No one had ever listened to her like that before. Their bond grew, fragile yet strong, like a thread pulled tight. Each day added something new, a word, a smile, a shared meal. Each night, the fire warmed not just their bodies, but the space between their hearts. But shadows still followed. Sometimes, as Lyra fetched water from the well outside, she felt eyes on her. She turned quickly, but the street was empty. At night, she sometimes heard footsteps again, faint but near. Fear clung to her, whispering that her husband's allies were close. One evening, while Daniel was fixing a broken chair, Lyra stood by the window, looking into the street. The lamps outside flickered, and for a brief second, she saw a figure. A tall shape, unmoving, watching. Her chest tightened, and she stepped back quickly. When she looked again, the street was empty. But the fear did not fade. She told Daniel, her voice shaking, "I think someone is watching." Daniel's expression grew hard, his jaw tightening. "You're safe here," he said, but his hand went to the tool on the table, gripping it like a weapon. His calm was still there, but beneath it, she saw fire. For the first time, she realized he was not only kind, he was ready to fight. That night, the fear lingered, but so did something else. As she sat by the fire, Daniel placed another blanket around her shoulders. "You don't have to carry this alone," he told her. His words sank deep, warming her in ways the fire could not. Her throat tightened, and before she could stop herself, she whispered, "Why do you care so much?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "Because you deserve better," he said simply. "No grand speeches, no false promises. Just truth, plain and steady." Her heart trembled, caught between fear and longing. She wanted to push him away, but she could not. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe she was worth caring for. As the night deepened, Lyra lay awake on her bed. Her mind replayed his words, his smile, his steady eyes. Her chest ached, not with fear, but with something new, something fragile, something dangerous. "Hope," she whispered into the quiet, as if confessing to the darkness itself. "I am not nothing." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. But outside the house, unseen in the shadows, eyes still watched. The past was not finished, and soon it would knock at their door. The days of fragile peace ended one stormy night. Rain hammered against the roof of the small wooden house. Lyra sat by the fire, her hands clutching the blanket Daniel had given her. But her mind was restless, shadows of her past pressing closer than ever. Daniel was sharpening a blade, his movements calm but firm. He had felt it too, the weight of eyes watching from the dark. Neither of them spoke it aloud, but both knew. The moment they had feared was coming. A sudden knock struck the door, heavy and sharp. Lyra froze, her heart leaping into her throat. Daniel's head turned, his jaw tightening. Another knock followed, louder, demanding. The storm outside roared, but the sound of fists on wood cut through it like thunder. "Lyra," a voice called, harsh and cold. Her blood ran cold. It was him, her husband. She backed away, shaking her head. "No, no, he found me," she whispered. Her knees weakened, and she nearly fell. Daniel moved quickly, steadying her with one hand. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice calm but burning with resolve. The door rattled under another strike. "Open," the alien husband's voice thundered. "She is mine. She belongs to me." Daniel's grip tightened on the blade. "She doesn't belong to you," he muttered under his breath, his eyes fierce. The door burst open, slamming against the wall. Rain and wind rushed in, and with it came the tall figure of Lyra's husband. His eyes blazed with rage, his clothing marked with wealth and power. Two of his allies followed, their faces cruel and eager. Lyra stumbled back, fear choking her. Her husband pointed at her with venom. You dare run from me? You shame me before all. His gaze shifted to Daniel, his lip curling. And you, a human rat, daring to touch what is mine. Daniel stepped forward, his presence steady as stone. She is not yours, he said firmly. She never was. The alien laughed, a sound sharp and bitter. You think you can keep her? You think your kind can stand against mine? He stepped closer, his hand reaching for Lyra. She gasped, shrinking back, but Daniel moved between them like a wall. His blade raised, his eyes unflinching. You will not touch her, Daniel said. His voice was low, but it carried more weight than thunder. The two allies sneered and stepped forward, ready to strike. Lyra's heart pounded as fear and hope clashed inside her. The fight erupted. One ally lunged, swinging a heavy weapon. Daniel dodged, his blade flashing in the firelight. The clash of metal rang through the small house. The second ally rushed in, but Daniel met him with fierce strength. Every move he made was sharp, controlled, fueled by something stronger than fear. He was fighting not for himself, but for her. Lyra pressed against the wall, tears blurring her vision. Her husband's eyes locked on her, filled with fury. You think this human can save you? He snarled. You will crawl back to me when he falls. No, she whispered, her voice trembling but defiant. For the first time, she raised her chin, meeting his eyes. I will never return to you. Her words struck him harder than any blade. His face twisted with rage, and he lunged toward her. But Daniel intercepted, slamming him back with raw force. The two crashed into the table, splintering wood and scattering flames from the fire. The room filled with smoke and sparks. The storm outside raged, the fire inside crackled, and the battle shook the walls. Lyra's hands trembled, but she did not run. She could not. She would not abandon Daniel as she had been abandoned. The allies pressed hard, but Daniel fought with relentless strength. Every strike was fueled by his promise, his determination to protect her. Blood ran down his arm where a blade had cut him, but he did not falter. His eyes burned with unshaken resolve. At last, with a final strike, Daniel drove one ally back, sending him crashing into the wall. The other staggered, clutching his wounds. Only Lyra's husband remained, his fury unbroken. He glared at Daniel, spitting words filled with venom. You cannot keep her forever, he hissed. She belongs to me, and I will return. Daniel stood tall, his chest rising with heavy breaths. She belongs to no one, he said firmly. She chooses her own life now. The husband snarled, but the storm outside pulled him back. His wounded allies dragged him away, their footsteps fading into the night. The door hung broken, the fire burned low, and silence finally fell. Lyra's knees gave out, and she sank to the floor. Tears ran down her face, but they were not only of fear. They were of relief, of freedom. Daniel dropped the blade and knelt beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder. It's over, he said, though his voice was heavy. For now. Lyra looked at him, her chest aching with 1,000 emotions. He had stood against everything she feared. He had fought not because she was his possession, but because she was worth protecting. And for the first time, she felt the chains of her past breaking. But deep inside, she knew this was not the end. Her husband's words still lingered. He would return, and when he did, the fight would not only test Daniel's strength. It would test her courage to stand by his side. The broken door creaked in the wind. Rainwater dripped inside, mixing with ashes from the fire. The battle was over, but the air still felt heavy. Lyra sat on the floor, her chest rising and falling as if she had run for miles. Daniel stood near her, his arm bleeding, his breath rough. Yet his eyes were steady, his presence unshaken. When he looked at her, there was no anger, no demand, only quiet strength. You're safe, he said softly, though his voice carried the weight of exhaustion. Safe. The word echoed in her chest again, but this time it did not feel fragile. It felt real. Her husband's threats still haunted her, his voice still hissed in her memory. But tonight she had seen something she had never seen before. Someone who fought for her, not because she was his possession, but because she was herself. She reached out, her trembling fingers touching Daniel's wounded arm. You are hurt, she whispered, guilt flooding her voice. This is because of me. Daniel shook his head firmly, his hand gently resting on hers. No, he said. This is because of him, not you. His gaze held hers, steady and unyielding. I would do it again. Her throat tightened, her heart pounding. Tears welled in her eyes, but they were not only of sorrow. They were of something new, something she had long forgotten. Love. Daniel helped her to her feet, guiding her to the unbroken side of the room. He placed a blanket around her shoulders, then sat beside her. For a moment, silence filled the house, broken only by the storm outside. Lyra leaned against him, her body trembling but her spirit burning brighter. She whispered, almost afraid of her own words. I will never go back. Daniel's arm wrapped around her, firm and reassuring. You don't have to, he said. You are free to choose, and I will stand with you, no matter what. Those words struck her deeper than any blade. Free. She had never been free, not as a daughter, not as a wife. But now, sitting beside this human, she felt chains breaking inside her. For the first time, her life belonged to her. The days that followed were not easy. Her husband's threats lingered in the air. The people in the streets still whispered, still judged. But Lyra no longer bowed her head. She walked beside Daniel, her steps firm, her heart lighter. Each night, as the fire burned, they shared laughter, stories, and quiet moments. Her fear faded slowly, replaced by something stronger. A bond that grew not from duty or control, but from choice. She chose to stay, and he chose to fight for her. One evening, as the storm had passed and stars filled the sky, Lyra sat by the window, the golden light of the fire behind her. She turned to Daniel, her voice soft but steady. I thought I was nothing, she confessed. But with you, I feel alive again. Daniel met her gaze, his eyes warm. You were never nothing, Lyra, he said. You just needed someone to remind you. Her lips trembled into a smile, and she leaned closer. In the quiet of the night, she found not only safety but love. A love she had never known among her own people. A love that gave her strength to face tomorrow. The world outside would still be cruel. Her past would still try to return. But now she was no longer alone. She had a place, a choice, and a heart that finally belonged not to chains, but to freedom. And as she lay down that night, in the warmth of a human's bed, she whispered into the silence, I have found where I belong. For the first time, the words did not feel like a dream. They felt like truth.